阿拉伯埃及共和国，简称埃及。埃及位于非洲东北部，地处欧亚非三大洲的交通要冲，是大西洋与印度洋之间海上航线的捷径。北部经地中海与欧洲相通，东部经阿里什直通巴勒斯坦，西连利比亚，南接苏丹，东临红海并与巴勒斯坦接壤，东南与约旦、沙特阿拉伯相望，海岸线长2700多千米。苏伊士运河沟通了大西洋与印度洋，战略位置和经济意义都十分重要。阿拉伯人将埃及称作米斯尔，在阿拉伯语中意为辽阔的国家。埃及又称为金字塔之国、棉花之国。一带一路倡议赋予了新时期中埃关系新的内容，双方迎来了新的发展机遇。两国共建一带一路具有广阔的发展前景和重大的现实意义。本期节目，我们将走进埃及，与埃及驻华大使穆罕默德·巴德里一起探索“一带一路”下中埃两国的发展前景，共同畅想两国的灿烂明天。作为连接世界几大古文明的重要纽带，丝绸之路自古便成为中埃两国友谊的桥梁。汉代张骞、班超等人出使西域所开拓的丝绸之路，不仅是古代中埃之间互通有无的商贸大道，也是两国文化交流的重要途径。作为陆上丝绸之路和海上丝绸之路的交汇点，埃及自古以来便具备天然的战略重要性。对埃及来说，与中国的关系是特殊的，因为两国的友好往来可以追溯到几千年以前。作为世界上的两个重要文明古国，中埃友谊具有历史积淀。中埃两国在历史、文化等领域具有相似之处。在古代，中国的丝绸、茶叶等商品受到埃及人欢迎。在当代，中国发展的成功经验值得埃及学习。作为世界上两个重要的文明古国，中埃两国友谊源远流长。自新中国成立以来，尤其是自2014年中埃建立全面战略伙伴关系以来，两国关系不断呈现新特点。在“一带一路”倡议带动下，中埃两国正在掀开合作共赢的新篇章。
Well, in our history, we were very well known for our trading. Trading started in the third millennium before BC, and we even went so far with our trade fleet up to the East Africa and all across the Mediterranean, especially the eastern part of the Mediterranean. So we have a very long history of trade in the heritage of trade in the region. Later on, our heritage expanded worldwide in the sense that we started to have what you might call an international route that was there, and it was directly going from Europe. All the trade used to come to the Mediterranean. Then it was carried on camel's back to the Red Sea, and from there it went on to China and the East in general. So we were what you might call the maritime, part of the maritime aspect of the international trade. And we had it for quite a long time until the Portuguese discovered the Cape of Good Hope. And there were even military battles fought over this in 1508 and 1509 in the Battle of Deo, where we and the Mamluks and the Ottoman Empire joined forces in order to maintain the status quo, but they were defeated, and starting from 1509 there was a diversification of trade, and Egypt started to lose its role in the international trade, not as before, of course, because shipping through maritime was cheaper via maritime airways, via maritime ways. The 19th century, late 19th century, when we developed the Suez Canal. So you didn't need to put them back on camelbacks and then get them again in the Red Sea, so it flowed from there. And since then, the Suez Canal, a lot of the international trade passes through the Suez Canal, and it continues up until today.
埃及是第一个承认新中国并同中国建交的阿拉伯和非洲国家，也是首个与中国建立战略合作关系的阿拉伯和非洲国家。抵御侵略、争取民族独立的相似历史，摆脱落后、谋求发展的共同利益，热爱和平、包容互惠的文化传统，使中埃两国风雨同舟、休戚与共，传统友谊不断加深，结成了命运共同体。“一带一路”倡议令古老的文明交流互通再焕生机，也为中埃共同繁荣发展创造了绝佳的历史机遇。埃及积极响应“一带一路”倡议，并成为加入亚洲基础设施投资银行的首批国家之一。“一带一路”倡议将中国的历史文化、经验智慧近距离地展现在埃及人民面前。人们相信，两个文明古国交融共进的步伐会越走越快，两国人民生活也会越来越好。在“一带一路”倡议的引导下，2015年9月，中埃两国签署了中埃产能合作框架协议。在工业、交通、基础设施建设等方面，中埃可以找到合作共赢的机遇。
We have all been hit unexpectedly with globalization. And at a certain point of time, we didn't even know what globalization was. We started to feel the phenomena, but we didn't know what it was. I'm talking about 25 years ago, after the end of the Cold War and so on, and the world became open. And when the world becomes open, the first thing that you need to do is that you need to improve the way peoples transact with each other. The way people are able to communicate with each other. So I think that the initiative by His Excellency the President Xi Jinping was a very updated, modern global initiative that is taking account of the transformation in the world. So therefore, ever since he declared it in 2013, it was something of a lot of interest for the world. In very simple terms, it is like you are folding distance and space and time. This is very important because it helps peoples to interact. It helps the flow of trade. It helps the flow of communication. It helps making us all feel that we are in a globalized world. If you believe that you are in a globalized world, you need a globalized initiative like this. So I see it flourishing. I see it definitely going to go ahead. The world is going into a slowdown, severe recession, and that immediately affects the transaction between peoples and the transaction of trade. This is a very normal thing, but it is always very short-sighted to think about what will happen in the few months to come. We always need to have a more future-oriented vision. So the moment the world is going to pull itself together after the coronavirus is the moment that the BRI is going to flourish. The way it was crafted is that it was built on what you might call a win-win situation, like some initiatives that we have seen across history and time. This is a win-win strategy. So if you have a win-win strategy, we have to accept the fact that it's going to win at the end and it's going to be successful. Of course, it needs some work. It needs time, which is very normal when you have an initiative on that scale. And I believe it is going to prosper quite well.
海洋是各国经贸文化交流的天然纽带。在新形势下，中国提出了共建21世纪海上丝绸之路的战略构想，希望通过以点带线、以线带面的方式，增进同沿线国家和地区的经贸合作与友好往来。这对于促进区域经济一体化、增强中国的战略安全具有深远意义。 埃及的苏伊士运河连通了地中海和印度洋，是海上丝绸之路的关键节点和重要延伸。苏伊士运河大大缩短了亚欧两个市场在时间和空间上的距离，为增进亚欧之间的贸易往来创造了条件。互利共赢是“一带一路”的基本特征。中国在基建方面的优势将帮助埃及筑梦。新苏伊士运河的贯通将使海上通道变得更快、更高效。可以说，中埃两国因21世纪海上丝绸之路形成了命运共同体。
Our relationship with China is a very old relationship. It's a very solid relationship. Even when we didn't have embassies or ambassadors like myself centuries ago, the transaction was still going. We were intermediaries for shipping Chinese goods to Europe. Besides the road beltway, we had the maritime beltway. So this was very important. So we also had what you might call long civilizational ties. And this is something that should be reckoned in our relationship. So we had a very long history, and since the modern era, we are the first country to have an embassy here in the Arab, African and Middle Eastern country from the region. We're the first to establish diplomatic ties with China in 1956. So we have quite a strong relationship. What this initiative does is that it adds an old new dimension in our relationship. You cannot have a proper functioning Silk Road initiative without Egypt. Egypt is a geopolitical, is a geo-economic and a geo-trade spot in the world, globally. So this added, it's furthering a dimension, and as you know, the Belt and Road Initiative includes in quite a substantial way and part the Suez Canal. This is one of the most important international trade routes. Therefore, Egypt has to be included. Now, ever since His Excellency the President declared it, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi later on approved of it, supported it, and we are giving it all the necessary impetus from our part. It falls within our global vision of how to get people closer. It falls of our global vision of how to reposition Egypt in world trade and world investment, and above all in how we are able to communicate better. So it has our full support from the President to the Prime Minister, to the Minister of Trade, to the Minister of Transportation. Everybody is supporting this initiative wholeheartedly, and President Sisi declared this very openly during the summit that was held for this regard, the two summits.
一带一路的这条路上流通的不仅是商品，更是思想与文化的传播，是各种文明的交流。它可以连接一带一路沿线国家，并使之更好的交流与了解。国之交在于民相亲，民相亲在于心相通。作为世界上两大文明古国，在政治互信、经贸互利之外，中国和埃及之间的文化交流也为两国心相通搭建起一个精彩的舞台。同时，一带一路建设也是中非合作论坛的重要组成部分。埃及会积极响应中非合作论坛北京宣言中提及的将一带一路建设作为纽带连接中国与非洲的倡议，促进中非经贸、投资、发展合作。文化交流和经贸合作是相互促进、相互协调的一个硬币的两面，共同体现在一带一路倡议中。通过文化交流，增强两国人民的了解与互信，同时让更多的青年人投身于中埃一带一路建设中。双方经贸合作将得到稳固发展， 而切实可行的经贸合作有利于提高两国人民的生活水平，让两国人民切身感受到“一带一路”倡议带来的各项实惠，也让埃及人民更加认可、认同中国文化。
As I told you, if you're talking about the globalized world, you cannot say I am globalized economically without trade. You cannot say I am globalized trade and economics without culture. You cannot without communication. It just doesn't work. Today, the whole world, the folding of time, space, distance, and communication is shrinking. It's getting smaller. So it definitely has a very strong impact everywhere. Today, if you just export a commodity, you don't only export a commodity per se. You export with it a part of your culture, a part of your vision, even part of your language. So it is, as I told you, it's a very updated vision of globalization. So communication will boost people to people, which is an essential aspect in the BRI vision itself. It is there because you cannot ignore this dimension. On the contrary, and I think that it is also the only global agenda that we have that includes a people-to-people contact in such a massive scale.
中埃两国文化交流源远流长，早在2000多年前，一条横贯欧亚大陆的丝绸之路就将两国联系在一起。中国提出“一带一路”倡议后，埃及表现出极大的兴趣。埃及总统阿卜杜勒·法塔赫·塞西首次访华就表示，“一带一路”倡议为埃及的复兴提供了重要契机，埃方愿意积极参与并支持。中埃两国在投资、技术领域的合作前景非常广阔，埃及是非洲的大门。埃方将通过与中国在“一带一路”框架下的合作，把握发展良机。中埃两国在安全合作、人员交流、文化借鉴乃至城市发展等方面都存在非常好的合作机遇。中埃两国关系将迎来飞跃式发展，两国将共同迎接双边关系崭新的未来。